Please come, sir. Let's finish the panel and then go for lunch. Aye, sir, please come. Hey, Marshal Sachdeva and yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is all the panel. So, all of you are part of the panel now. Let me quickly say, with all this we have been talking about, the essence is the concept of getting military education into schools, colleges, universities. And I very much liked the way Dr. Shrikant Ranjibai said, 9th and 10th class are probably the right time when you actually tell a student, teach him what is strategy and teach him, because this is a compulsory subject at that time, and therefore it makes a lot of sense that we inculcate the concepts of strategy, technology at that age, because it will remain with them. So I just want to tell you certain things that there are some institutes of national importance, and there are some 161 of them. And why I'm talking about institutes of national importance, because IITs are part of that. There are about 25 triple IITs, 20 IIMs, 7 IISc and some education institutes, NIT, 22 IITs, and of course few other institutions and RRU. In an institute of national importance, they don't have to go and ask anybody. They can structure their own courses. They can actually have their own syllabus. They are not dependent upon AICTE, UGC and all these fellows to come and interfere in their job, and therefore it's very important that we impress upon these institutes of national importance first as to how and what type of courses that they should structure. This is my first point. And therefore, I would ask Dr. Kamath to please give us a comment on this. Should it be, how is it that we can motivate institutes of national importance to adopt military education as a fundamental character in their syllabi? Do we have a mic for him? Okay, while the mic comes, keep the question on. So I'm going to ask another question in the meantime. So there are a number of colleges that are imparting Bachelor of Science in Defence Studies. Do you know there are 12 in UP? 4 in UP, 2 in Rajasthan, 1 in Chhattisgarh, 1 in Delhi, Manipur, MP, Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand and West Bengal. So there are about 12 colleges which are doing, these are the Swami Vivekananda College, MP, Sridhar University, Meerut College and all that. So those names are there. So we have got something going on even from the AICTE side. Now R&D is a very expensive process. We invest only 0.7% in R&D. You talked about 25% R&D budget which is being allocated to industry. Till now, at least I have not understood. I do not know if DRDO has understood. I do not know if MOD has understood. Forget DRDO. I do not know if MOD has understood. When this budget allocation has been made, this 25% R&D, where exactly is this money being put in? Can a portion of this can it be put for educational institutions? Is my question. And it's a question, when you get the mic, you can just get to answer this, because this is a debate which has been going on. I've been interacting with a lot of people asking, where is this 25%? This 25% is part of which? Is it part of the 9,000, 10,000 crores that you get, or is it a part of the R&D budget that you get? From where is this money getting carved? And who is responsible to spend it? Is it DRDO? Is it MOD? Is it DDP? Is it DOD? I don't know. So that's a question that you can probably answer. Then there are a number of universities in India. So in 2015 we had 760 universities, and 2020 we have some 1,043 universities today. And there are any number of colleges. So there are about some 5,860 institutions. Total intake is 23 lakhs. Hello. So I'm giving you these basic things. We talked about DIIT, which is doing the MTech course, computer science engineering, aero engineering, aeronautical engineering, mechanical, electrical, material science and other things. RRU is a very interesting thing. RRU has got, they have Bachelor of Science in Security Management. Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science, specialization in cyber security. They have integrated course in various in strategic studies and even in technologies, and they've got faculties for that. They have programs, they've got degree programs, they've got certificate courses, they've got a postgraduate course in defense and strategic studies, bachelor's in defense and strategic studies. So I thought, Dr. Kamath, you mentioned you cannot forego the relationship between strategy and technology, and therefore I think this becomes important. Would you like to make a comment on this as to how, when you in IIT Kanpur talk about, let's say, MTech program in a particular technology, how can you integrate strategy to it and how we can make it more meaningful? So that's another question for you. Now, synergistic sectors of space, like General Bhatt was talking to us about, and that LEO, when he talked about LEO, let me tell you, it's a $4 trillion opportunity that we are looking up in the next 5 years. So $4 trillion in terms of money, where will the force come from? What type of education we are giving? Do we have universities, colleges talking purely space? And how do we sort of synergize when you get to that? Then we have this, somebody talked about the INDU, that we are going to have this Indian National Defence University. But when I see the charter of the university, it's a defence service university set up for the affiliation of the training academies. You talked about the 142 in Air Force. And I think it's only for the affiliation of this. I don't know if they are going to run. So Dr. Kamath, all yours, sir.
I think you gave the toughest question first. In fact, this is a question I think, just to repeat my understanding of the question, is how do we bring these aspects into the curriculum, into our teaching, right? And to be very honest, that's a question I've been grappling with ever since I agreed to be part of this event. Because it's very easy for me to say how we can bring in technology into the strategy, but so effectively it sounds very simple, like exactly the strengths that organizations or institutions like IIT have is there's a very high degree of autonomy in how we run what our curriculum is, how we run our courses, how we manage. But I think one key element that we need to address is in terms of getting the right faculty. I think that's, in my opinion, because once you have the faculty within the system, getting a course, offering it, running it the way you want is not at all an issue. And like I was telling Professor Paranjpe earlier, is like the way I sometimes, like I can give you my own personal experience, is that I run an aircraft design course. I run as an IT teacher aircraft design course. And one of the ways I bring in industry perspective into it or industry flavor into it is by inviting guest lecturers, and that I have full freedom to invite whoever I want, but obviously they come for 1 lecture or 2 lectures and so on. But that's okay, that's like a icing on the cake kind of a thing, but that's not the cake itself. And what I think we are trying to address is how do you make it more integral to the curriculum? Professor Kota used to say, it's a good question, which means that I don't have an answer, but I think it is an important question, and I think I believe it has to, maybe one of the thoughts I had was, we do have the humanities and social sciences kind of stream, right? So we have streams of sociology, we have streams of philosophy, English, and even economics. Somebody can question, now we are offering a program in economics, so somebody can ask why an economics program in a technology institute. So I don't see any reason not to expand it to the scope of, say, international relations or political science and so on. And by that means bring in more faculty into the institutes, and then introduce these interdisciplinary courses which involve, international relations, strategy, and so on. That would be.
Thank you, sir. That's one way. The second way could be, I'll just make a suggestion and leave it because we are running short of time. Maybe you can have a tie-up with International Institute of Strategic Studies and either have the students swapping, to go and do a 6 weeks course there and come back, or the faculty swapping, they can come and teach strategic studies here. But I think that connect, what you talked about, strategy and technology, that connect we should not forget ever. So while you hold the mic, I want to ask you another question. You said, when you gave the example of Maruta, and you said, the forces know what they know, and then you stopped yourself. Probably I want to continue. I don't know what you thought in your mind, but what I think you thought in your mind is like this. Forces know what they know. Do they know what they don't know? Or do they not know what they don't know? That's a dangerous part. If you were wanting to complete it like that, I wanted to ask you the question, how do we educate even the forces?
I think it's, I didn't want to get too controversial about it, but I think it's not a reflection. I think I remember talking to an Air Force officer, obviously I'll not name the person, and saying that this person...
Sir, I'll make it easy for you. Yeah. I was a lieutenant colonel at one point in time, and I was given the task of writing the QR for Samyukta, Integrated Electronic Warfare Program, Samyukta. At that time it was a big thing, and Dr. Abdul Kalam. And what I did was very simple. In those days there was no internet and all that. I just picked up a few James books and brought the best jammer, the best receiver, the best this and best that, and then I put it on, this is the QR. I was greatly appreciated internally, and when we went and presented it to DLRL, we were shot down so badly. I said, is this the way you make a QR? So I think there is a need of education. It's not that we don't have to feel ashamed. If we want to know, we need to know that. I think so.
That was the point, because same Air Force officer, because I worked closely with 1BRD, Chakeri in Kanpur, and one person said that same thing. And I was part of a task force, or I was part of a team which had to put together this ASR for a platform, and this person said, I had no clue, I have no aeronautical background, and how am I supposed to put an ASR for a platform which I myself don't understand? So it was just that, I think, we need to, that's where I think this integration is important. I don't think we need to know everything, meaning the armed forces doesn't have to know everything, academia doesn't need to know what, so I think it's just a matter of...
We have to bring them together.
Exactly.
So you talked about Israel, and you gave the example of, every Israeli man somehow, joins the army. You actually talked about conscription, and you said since he is there and he understands, it is so much better, and we also have a budget of 7.8% of the GDP is invested in R&D in Israel. So I just wanted to shift it a little from there, and maybe, I don't know if Air Marshal Satya would like to answer this question. Is there a relation between conscription, Agnipath scheme, and therefore we are following probably the same route somewhere, and will it help?
Once again, how is Agnipath coming into it?
Agnipath is coming because it's a tour of duty, and you're going to have more number of people who are going to be exposed to the way of armed forces life than it is today. Because you're going to retain only 25%, and the rest are coming back to the civil street. And therefore, you're going to have more people who are armed forces trained on the civil street, and therefore they probably understand the security and the national security and the relevance of the armed forces a little more, and therefore that would probably help Dr. Kamath when he made the statement, how it is easy for an academic or R&D institution or the people at large to understand as to what the armed forces require.
I think there's a big disconnect. If you see a couple of my articles which are floating around, there is a big disconnect between three. What the soldier wants, what the industry can make, and what is the future technology. That means the academician is going into the future technology, industry is making something for me, I don't know what he is making, he doesn't know what I want, and what is the future technology. These three things have to get together.
Okay.
I'm
focusing on education.
I know.
I'm focusing on education.
No, I'm getting into education. I'll tell you what he spoke about 1BRD. You'll be surprised what they have done for the nation. The Kanpur IIT. Nobody knows about it. Even I don't know whether even he's aware of it. when the USSR broke, 124 AN-32s which we had bought from USSR with a factory in Ukraine was collapsing. We didn't know how to get that thing up. 926 components were removed from AN-32 1 BRD, sent to IIT Kanpur. They reproduced it, re-engineered it, and gave us something which was better than what the Russians had given us. And that product, who certified it? The Indian Air Force certified it and said, we are happy with what you have given us in lieu of what the Russians were giving. The problem came when the Ukraine factory came back online, and when we took the aeroplane back, they were shocked to see the equipment which they had put on board.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that.
Ye kya ho gaya?
Thank you very
This is
much
what
for
they
that.
did. So that means somewhere they got linked together. The military.
I got it. So
I also have a habit of speaking a lot.
Yeah, I've got
so
to manage the time.
got each other.
I have to manage the time, sir. Sorry. I have to manage the time.
So you'll have to give time to us to speak.
I'll give it back to Dr. Kamath. I've got to ask him a question. You know, there is a ramjet engine that you're making, and there is an Aura that's also being made in IIT Kanpur, and there's a lot of incubation that's going on. You're also being nominated as the Center for Excellence for SDR, the software-defined radio. I just want to understand, how do you want to bring the element of education into the whole thing? One is to do a project. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in who's doing the project. Does that person have a formal education? Or, any engineer is going to do that? That's my question.
Sorry, I didn't quite get.
So,
No,
there are a
maybe-
number of projects
Correct.
that have been talked about. Even Dr. Pathak talked about a number of projects. I can understand projects. What I'm asking is, we are now executing the projects with the existing engineers we have, who are generalistic engineers, mechanical engineering, product engineering, electrical engineering, electronics, like that. We are now talking about MTech. In fact, Dr. Pathak himself, he talked about MTech and, in various disciplines. You've got some very important projects. You're doing the Aura. You're doing the ramjet engine. You're doing the SDR, the futuristic FDR. So, who's doing this? Is there a requirement for formal education? How do we want to bring it?
No, I think, see, ultimately, even ISRO, if you look at it, very complex system, but it is manned by, it is staffed by mechanical engineers, electronic engineers, and so on. So ultimately, it's an integration of different engineering streams or engineering disciplines, and these are being done by master's students, PhD students, BTech students, and so on. And ultimately, that the experience that they gain from carrying out these projects gets translated into the industries that they go ahead and start working on. So it is not, you don't need specialists. This is
Okay.
So that's
Okay, so that's a good idea. So therefore, all this MTech in aeronautical engineering or MTech in radar, sensors, all that, which DRDO is now doing with AICTE, they are doing a lot of these. I'm coming to Vikas. So, Vikas, you talked about the complete product range, guns, missiles, all this. So how do you want to put education into the perspective?
Okay, sir, so firstly, I don't have a model for this. I only have experience, and that is my own and some of my colleagues.
So I'll ask you another question then. See, you have L&T EduTech. Now I am aware of Madurai University, for example. Honeywell sponsors a complete course in Madurai University, and they absorb 100%. Okay, they are all ready aerospace engineers which are absorbed into Honeywell. I'm talking about HTSL, Honeywell Technology Services Limited. Like that, L&T, for example, now I'll ask you a specific question, and an open question. Can there be a CSR activity where you say, okay, you put so much into education, into the required field, and that is considered as CSR, and therefore your L&T EduTech, or even for your own K-10 guns or K-9 guns, or for your nuclear submarines, you can actually sponsor a course, take those guys. Yeah.
So, what I mentioned earlier on the L&T EduTech, that we are doing precisely that, but we're not even asked for it to be qualified under CSR. So we are doing this to improve the level of engineering in the country, to make public systems safer, more constructible. So there are specialist courses being offered in bridge design, etc. And we absorb those students.
That's what you're doing.
Yes.
But will it be helpful for larger industries, if you
No,
make
so-
a CSR?
So as I said, we have only experience to go by. So our experience in this has been good so far.
Okay.
Now, whether what we are doing also works for another defense manufacturer, whether PSU or a private sector manufacturer, is a larger question. We've found this, we've experimented with this model at various levels. We've experimented with this model at the tradesman level in construction, then in project management, then we've experimented with it we are not doing it in the engineering stream. It has worked well for us in one sector, and that is the construction sector. The defense production, being by its nature, there are too many variants and low volume variants, and the business is not it's not something that you can forecast with any degree of accuracy when the business will arrive, and if it does arrive, if and when it does arrive, whether it will be profitable. So it puts certain question marks over the sustainability of such an initiative in the so obviously you need more industries to pitch in to do it. So if I don't get the business, then someone else has got it. So the student who's invested time, money, etc. in pursuing a certain course is not left sitting high and dry at the end of the day. Okay, if he doesn't come to me, he goes to someone else.
So what you're saying is we can follow the Symbiosis Institute of Computer
Correct.
Science, where 15 industries in Pune have got together.
Yeah.
They sponsor the complete course MBA,
Yes.
and they take 100% absorb.
I didn't want to use that reference, but you brought it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. So
There's a question you asked on the R&D, and it has gone unanswered. I'll just give you some figures to make the audience and the public understand. In 1960, the India's GDP was $0.68 billion. Okay, just understand the figures. It was $0.68 billion, and 1% from the defense budget was going towards the R&D in 1960. 1994, the budget did go up, and the R&D share from the defense budget went up to 5%. Now, in 2001, the R&D budget went up to 7% out of the total defense budget. Today, the defense budget from $0.68 billion, 1% R&D has gone up to $68 billion, and 7% of this goes towards the R&D. So this nation is investing in R&D. Let's not worry about that. The private industries are themselves investing into R&D. Every startup, every MSME is investing into R&D. I have tried to get a total figure of how much each one is contributing towards R&D. It's a very difficult thing. I have not been able to get my hand on that. But yes, this nation is investing in R&D.
Oh, that's very nice to hear. That's very nice to hear. So thank you so much for that. Dr. Paranjpai, Shrikant Paranjpai, sir, I mean, you made very interesting observations. One is catch them young, 9th class and 10th class. You said NCERT is not sort of cooperating.
Colonel Kobe, I think what we are talking here, in connect, in addition, I would like to clarify some of the things which raise some questions. See, what I'll say that we will not go into that how that funding is worked out, who is doing it. I will tell you how DRDO has planned it. Now, the research that at these centers of excellence, we have our very systematic approach based on the needs of our armed forces, technological needs. And we then see the perspective that what we can do it. Wherever technological gaps we find out, only we are mounting this research to fill those technological gaps. Now what happens, that numbers which I have mentioned, that is just in last 3 years it has happened, around 600, I think 550 crore worth, 175 projects DRDO is doing. And every year, this year I can tell you, we are about 175 crore towards these centers we are spending. Next year we have about 50 to 60% hike because we are setting up 5 more centers. So our research, engagement and the funding is increasing. Like our percentage, I am not able to tell you how much it is because we have cars also, we have technology development fund schemes we have today,
I know, sir.
where we are trying to develop. So we are increasing. So,
I've got all the
but I will not
statistics.
give you the figure
I know,
today.
I've got the statistics.
But yes, we are.
No, that's not a problem. But we are focusing on education, so I want to come back to Dr. Srikanth Prajpai. Sir, you made a very interesting comment. Catch them young, at 9th class. Any 9th class students here? Or they've all gone for lunch? Okay. So at 9th class, since NCERT is not cooperating, whom do we approach? What do we do for this? The idea is good. It has to be done.
I suppose the ministry.
Okay. So is it for Metamorphs to probably create a set of recommendations and take it to the ministry? Are we ready to do that, Ash? Sure. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to do that.
You see, in Maharashtra, the syllabus is prepared by the Board of Studies appointed by the government. It is independent. The syllabus is prepared entirely, but the government does not interfere. But whether to start a subject or not, it is a government's decision. Now, the Political Science Committee of the NCERT, if they decide to have topics in defense studies, it is entirely up to them to do it. The government would not interfere. It is the Political Science Committee, since this area would fall within political science.
Right.
Since the Political Science Committee has not done that, it is up to that committee to do it,
Right.
not the government. But if you have to introduce a subject, you have to go to the government.
Right.
In Maharashtra, it is the Political Science Committee which did all this.
Can we introduce them at least in Sainik schools?
What board does any school use? They use
That
the
is a-
NCERT syllabus. They use the central school.
No, they don't use the central school route. There is a local board of administration which is normally under the CNC of the command. I mean, like for example,
So
my
those-
school was under the CNC.
Those
what is
sainik
that?
schools which come under state government boards,
Mhm.
it is entirely up to those boards. For Maharashtra, the sainik school, if
No,
it comes under...
Satara, all Sainik schools come under the central government. It's being administered by MOD.
What books do they use? NCERT books?
We use NCERT.
Yeah. So that is where I'm coming to.
There we could be gone.
The Political Science Committee,
But MOD can always probably do something.
no.
Wow.
The Board of Studies
Okay.
is autonomous. You will have a flag in the newspaper if the MOD tries to.
Okay. So you talked about the competitive exams and you said, these subjects don't even exist there. Whom do we approach for this?
UPSC.
Okay. Okay. So I think, sir, that was very good. In fact, I was wanting to request the students from Mount Carmel when they were there that they should go back to the principal and say, get this introduced for us. This is what Dr. Srikanth
It is
Prajpai
entirely up to the school to
I
add
know.
it as a non-credit
Yes.
phenomenon.
Yes.
That is not a problem.
Okay. Right, so that's very good. So, General Bhatt, would you like to take on for...
Let me make two short comments here. Since we talked about school. You see, if you have to motivate the students into going in for even defense education in terms of defense technology, you have an MSc course in defense technology and whatnot, the motivation has to come in terms of their perception that this is an area I have to take. Where does that motivation come from? That motivation comes from their reading around, their being exposed to these issues. Now, this is a request I would make to all the panelists here who have been here. Can you write in newspapers, essentially newspapers, in regional language newspapers, on areas of your expertise and spread the knowledge? I mean, you might be working in a variety of areas, airspace technologies or whatever. Issues which deal or topics which are of concern to you, if you write them in local language newspapers, not English language newspapers, the real reach is regional language press. If you write in them, awareness would come amongst parents, that would filter down to the kids. One more clarification from what you've said. To start a BA or a BSc in defense studies, there is no need for an approval of the AICT. That is entirely a university decision whether to start a BSc or a BA program in any college.
Right.
The college is to apply to the university. It is up to that university to decide, or the college to decide. AICTE does not come into this. This is not a technical education phenomenon.
Okay.
This is entirely a university phenomenon. And so far as, I'm sorry to say this, but so far as higher education and doing courses, formal courses by armed forces, how do you teach the armed forces? You asked it. Look at the dissertations written at the higher command courses.
Right.
I teach at Moho, I teach at Goa.
I know.
I also go to the NDC.
I know.
I think I'll not say anything more.
Yes, sir, I know that. Thank you so much for that. So, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, when your car has a problem, you take it to the workshop next door and get it repaired. When the satellite has a problem in space, what happens? How do you carry out the repair of a satellite? And there was this Manipal, the students, young students from Manipal, who were actually putting a satellite in orbit, which was actually going to collect the debris from there and clean up the satellite space for us. And that was the type of exhibition Jal Bhatt had organized for us the other day. And you talked about the commercialization of space, how the space is going. We talked about the $4 trillion opportunity there. We're going to talk about a lot of material technologies. What do you think, sir, in your view, should be fundamentals from education side? How do we build this up?
Firstly, if I have to say this has to be started at school or it has to be started at basic level at college, no. Rocket science, space science requires expertise.
Right.
And like Professor Kamath said, all mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, computer engineers are fit enough to work in the domain of space.
Right.
Yes, one engineering domain which is now required is system engineering. Because that becomes very critical to design a satellite, manufacture a satellite, or even integrate a rocket which has to be done. One of the best examples in India today is the Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore.
Right.
They are incubating some of the best startups in India.
Dr. Kamath will take offense.
In deep technology, in space.
Okay.
In space.
In space. Okay.
I would
No,
that.
lighter side.
Otherwise also.
No.
And it is that model which I would aspire goes to all the IITs. Because you have the brains, you have the culture of doing it. And that is one of our intents of ISPA, that we spread it to IITs and even beyond. One very good college which has been created in South and for long has been a feeder for ISRO is the IIT Indian Institute of Technical Space, which is there in Trivandrum. If you get a degree from there, you automatically get into ISRO. It has been a great incentive.
That's right. Yeah.
Now more and more colleges are creating spaces. And as I say, if our economy is the space economy is to boom, we will have to create these capacities in much more colleges.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are coming to the end. I have to close this. But I only have to say that, I'm going to leave a small question and request our chief guest to give his concluding remarks on that. And the question is something like this. Since we all have realized the complexities in the systems, the type of aircrafts, missiles, this, that, space and everything, and we have heard Dr. Kamath speaking, Dr. Pranjpai speaking, Vikas speaking to us, and how complex things are. So I just want to ask two questions, and you could include that or up to you in your concluding remarks. That is, when, for example, L&T gets a contract for 100 K9 Vajras, should there be a 2% cess on that contract which should be invested into technologies related to that particular equipment? That is one idea. Can it be included? At least for large contracts, any contract exceeding 1,000 crores, let's say. Have a thing, and he said, I'm giving you this contract, but you will invest in these technologies for education. That is one. The second is, can there be a separate budget head in the MOD? We are having budget head for, cars and CHT and hiring this revenue, capital and all that, can we have a budget head for military education to be executed, probably by headquarter ideas of anybody else, whoever can do it, to be executed in such a way that we are able to fill these gaps which our education institutes are closing. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I request our chief guest, Air Marshal Satyawat, to give us concluding remarks.
I think I'll feel comfortable.
Okay.
I think it's been a very educative seminar. The whole day we've been discussing about education only and educating each one of us. And each panelist have spoken so well about that particular field. In the end, what comes out, I'll answer your questions a little later. In the end, what comes out is, let's educate the youth about the defense and the requirement of the defense. That has come out very clearly. Be it class 9 or wherever, even the students who were here, I saw them from my slides making notes. Was it they were making notes because the teacher said, "Yahan kya kara, likh ke leke aao," or they were making notes because they liked some figures which they didn't know. So we have to educate the youth on the defense and its needs. Secondly is link the soldier with the academician and the industry. I've been talking about it in my previous appointment from where I retired, that these are the three things which are not getting linked. There are so many startups. When I go to the Def Expo or anywhere, there are hundreds of startups who have come there, paid money, made an equipment, brought it for the Def Expo. Obviously the product is good, but he doesn't know how to sell it to me, to the defense forces. There's a break there. There's a defense acquisition procedure which is changed to defense, which was defense procurement procedure changed to defense acquisition. It's very difficult to sell a product to the defense. So we have to connect the industry, the academician and the soldier. The matured industries like the L&T, the DRDO should now take the leadership role. आओ बच्चों हम तुमको आगे ले जाते हैं. And we look after something else, exactly what General Bhatt is doing. ISRO, you go to Mars, you send human beings in the space and leave the rest to the younger ones. The same has to happen for the defense industries. Let's leave something for the younger ones. We will help you. We will guide you. 7% of the defense budget has gone to DRDO. They have developed something out of that. Give it free to these young boys. Give the IPR free. You've already got money to make it. So take the leadership role. Time has come for the nation to actually wake up to that vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat which was given by our Prime Minister. You cannot hang on and hold on to your horses. It is that vision which has to come true. So this is what I wanted to say, sum up the seminar. But now to answer your question, sir, anything which we buy from abroad which is more than 2,000 crores, you said 1,000 crores and cess of 2%? Anything which we buy from abroad which is of 2,000 crores plus, that company is supposed to invest 6% into us. That company is supposed to give us something known as an offset. That means if he is giving us something of 2,000 crores, 120 crores worth or 500 worth of crores of something, he is supposed to give us something else so that we grow, our industry grows. We have been a little slow on this in squeezing them out of this. Today the Israeli companies are feeling a pinch. They have given us enough, more than 2,000 crores. Now they are supposed to give the offsets. With this negative import list mentioned which came out, it has now changed to positive indigenization list. The negative word was not appreciated. I remember I was sitting with General Bipin Rawat when we presented this to the Prime Minister. Those days it was video conference in August 20 when we were under the lockdown. And we had made a list of 81 negative import lists that you will not import this from abroad. When we gave it to the Prime Minister, so he said from there on the other side of the screen, 101, 101, and he said 81, 101. So suddenly we realized that it's an auspicious figure. Quickly let's get on to 101, and we went to 101. Otherwise we were stopping at 81. And it was my office from where the first list was signed and pulled out of negative import list. And today, Today the thing is changed. You know how we got that list? We picked up the last 10, 15 years. In fact, General Saxena is sitting here. It was his office which pulled out last 20 years, how much have we bought from how many countries? Worth so much. And we said, this can be made in India. Why? Because the same product, these startups are making and selling it abroad. And I'm buying it from somewhere else. Why don't we buy it from him? So that's how the negative import list came out. Today the order is, you will buy nothing from abroad. You will buy nothing from abroad unless the RM says go. That means you have to convince the RM that this is not coming up in India. So it's a top-down approach where the government is telling us, join up, find out what is made in India and good to your SQRs, that is the service requirements. When I go and buy this mobile, I don't make some requirements and go out. I see the mobile, fit it into my requirement. Now those are the things which are happening in the military, that you have to join up together. The educationist is teaching us, so many IITs, so many, I've been interacting with them, they're doing wonders. Industry has to hold their hand and military has to know what is coming up for them. I think it's been an excellent day today, where all these three have been brought on stage by all of you, and we have been able to reach a particular this thing that yes, the three have to join up and this nation can do. Atmanirbhar Bharat is happening in a very big way. We were buying 30% from Indian industry. Today it has gone to 51% and it will keep going up with these kind of things which are happening. And education is very, very important for all. No equipment comes to us without being trained. So let's be very clear. We are educated. It's a very, very expensive military. A military is expensive. We have to get educated to actually handle this kind of money. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'll be failing my duty if I don't ask the audience to. Yeah, please.
I have a question to all the panelists. So my question is that we are talking here 9th and 10th standard or 8th standard or 7th standard students should feel that military education or start doing it in the early stage. So what you guys have the strategy or the suggestions to the public so that they can enter into that phase? Because in the school we will not be feel any in history now also we can see what kids are studying right now. They are studying some Russia war, they are studying some Europe war. We don't know about Indian history, right? So that also they don't know about that. How they can enter into the military study and all in the initial stage.
Oh, that's an excellent question. So you see, Dr. Srikanth Paranjapai answered it partially. So I'm just going to reflect his views on that.
You did what I am thinking of doing in space. In space, I am planning to have a national Olympiad of a quiz competition to reach out to every possible district to schools, and we are going to have a number of quizzes, competitions for different classes, groups. We are laying down 7th, 8th, and higher classes, and also we are doing it to the college, and that ultimately we'll have 2 to 3 rounds of it. And the winners, then we will invite them to Delhi. They will meet the Prime Minister of India, maybe go to a visit to ISRO sites and go around. Now this we want to make it into a yearly affair. Now what are we doing? We are basically creating consciousness about space, awareness about space. And I am very sure much more can be done with an existing model which is there of NCC, of their reach out to schools and colleges by the defense sector.
Super excellent. KBC.
Well, I'll just add on to this.
Take it there.
Kabir, I'll just add on to this. NCC he mentioned, with the Agniveer thing coming up, I think NCC is going to be compulsory for everybody now. And it's going to increase in a big way so that all of you are, in schools.
No. So anyway, any other questions? So before the audience goes away, I just want to make a small little change, a small little correction. You know, what the Air Marshal was talking about, the offset policy, I've been the author of the offset policy in 2006, and we are talking about 30% offsets, but I'm not even talking about the OEMs. I was talking about Indian companies. When we talk about 2% cess, we are talking about Indian companies which will invest in education for Indian students. And when we talk about a separate budget, a budget head that can be carved out for military education, then we are talking about an additional allocation. Of course, that's a very big thing, but I think Metamorphs can probably take it on, and we can go forward on that. And in case of offsets, we are at 30%, and today we have about $9 billion which are pending. Total was $13 billion, and there are about 56 companies, 56 OEMs which are there. There are 260 Indian companies which are there. So all those statistics are there with me. I was not talking about offsets at all. And I just want any other question, indulgence from the audience. I think somebody is coming up. Do you want a mic? Or you're planning to go for lunch? That's why you came forward. Okay. I think you've been an excellent audience. Thank you so much for being with us. And we have an excellent panel. Thanks to the chairperson, Air Marshal Sachdeva sir. Thank you so much for being with us and enlightening us on various things. Dr. Kamath, thank you sir. Vikas, so nice of you to spend the whole day with us for such a noble cause. General Bhatt, of course, we have been living in this paradigm for a very long time. Thank you so much for being there. And I love that idea of KBC. You're going to be the Amitabh Bachchan of tomorrow when you take it to, when you take space to the masses. That's what you should do. And I mean, I don't know how we can, it's an idea, it's a brilliant idea. Dr. Shrikant Paranjappai sir, thank you so much. Catch them young. And I think let's try and do that. I will hand over to Preeti Prakash to do the honors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dev, for that vote of thanks. Thank you all so much for this powerhouse brainstorming. And this brings us to the end of the first day of the conclave. And now I request everyone to join us for lunch.